Hi everyone, this is Deborah Ambition. I'm your host Nalani Selva Singham. We are now at episode 50. I don't know how I got here. The last, I want to say 6, 7, maybe even 8 months has been a very, very slow crawl. But I'm finally here and I want to just say thank you to everyone who's been listening, everyone who's been supporting, everyone who's been giving me their feedback. I really do appreciate all of it. And I want to keep going. I want to keep doing this, and I have some ideas in store, and hopefully I can just find it in me to carry out those ideas. I don't know what it is. I've heard, some people say, like, some people are too much of a perfectionist, like everything needs to be perfect, all the stars need to align for them to do stuff. And sometimes I feel like I do that, but it's really just like a way of me like sabotaging myself or procrastinating. So hopefully I'll just get everything done. I'm determined, and let's make the next 50 amazing. All right. Just to get on to today's episode, I've been wanting to talk about this for a while, and I'm glad that I'm finally doing it. Over the last little while, I've seen a lot of posts from very, very brave women talking about their experiences in fertility. So it was a lot of women talking about their troubles conceiving, or their troubles carrying their pregnancies to term. And it's very hard. It's very hard to openly talk about it. It's very hard to put it out there for everyone to read, everyone to see, everyone to maybe even judge. And again, very, very brave women, courageous women, and kudos to them for doing that. The posts that I did see, they came from women who either had trouble conceiving and now have children, or at least a child, or they had children and then they had trouble with their subsequent children. So women that do have children. And I felt like I wanted to talk about my experiences because I do not have kids. I am not pregnant, and my journey is obviously very different from theirs. Just like theirs are just amongst themselves. So I just want to share my experiences and really what the last, I want to say 3 years has been like for me. And yeah, when you don't have children, people or even just society in general can be very judgmental. But I feel like our community has gotten a lot better. There's been a lot of improvement, definitely from maybe 5, 10, 15 years ago. It's not the same. And I think mainly that has to do with people being more open about their experiences. So everyone else is kind of getting educated, I guess is the word, because of those shared experiences. They're kind of watchful of what they say, what they ask. Not everybody, but for the most part, I feel like my experience hasn't been that bad. When people ask me now, like, I usually just tell them we're trying, and for the most part people are like, oh, okay, and they just kind of leave it at that. Of course there's others that want to give advice or their input, and I kind of, for the most part, I find it amusing, but then I haven't, again, like I said, I haven't really dealt with people that have been very harsh or very rude or very ignorant. I haven't really dealt with that. So grateful, like I'm very grateful for that. I'm very thankful for that the people that I surround myself with, just, they just know, they know better. And so some of the things I've heard is, they just assume, some people assume that because we don't have kids, it must mean that we don't want kids or we're not trying this. So that's an assumption that's made. Some tell me, it's just because you're too busy. You're very busy, and then your husband's also very busy. What you need to do is just take a trip together. Just go away together, and it'll all work itself out. So never mind ovulation dates and any of that. Just have lots of sex and yeah, just get away from everybody. So that's a tip that I've received. Um, and then the third thing, and this thing kind of gets on my nerves, but they say something about my drinking, or have mentioned something about my drinking. I do talk about drinking a lot, but I don't always drink. And I don't know if I mentioned this before. Like, please don't think that I'm always drinking. Yes, I drank yesterday, and yes, I drank the day before, but I'm not always drinking. Okay, not always. But they think that because I drink, that's why I'm not getting pregnant. But they don't know that 50% of all pregnancies that are conceived while the female is intoxicated. Okay, I made that up. But can you imagine if you drink, if the female drinks, if the woman drinks, that there's no way she can get pregnant? Doesn't that sound stupid? Then how many babies? Like the Earth's population, what would happen to the Earth's population? Really? Really, it shouldn't be increasing for sure. For damn sure, it shouldn't be. So Akash and I officially started trying back in January 2019. We wanted 2 years together. You know, we got married in January 2017 and we wanted 2 years. Just us. It's just something that we had talked about and decided, and we wanted to enjoy that time, and we did, and we enjoyed that time very much. And we decided to start trying, and I think I want to say like that first month of us trying, and my period is very regular. Okay, it might come 1 or 2 days early, but like it's never late, and it's always around the same time. So that first month I didn't get my period, and the first thing in my head was, of course, the right when I start trying, like right away, I'm gonna get pregnant and everything's gonna change. And how much, like, have I been drinking enough? Like, I don't feel like I've drank in a long time. And when was the last time I had sushi? Because, like, I'm not gonna be able to have salmon sashimi, for like a long time. And these are the thoughts that are going through my head. I was in a complete state of panic, okay? And but I did end up getting my period. It was just like a couple days late, which was, again, very weird and very uncommon for me. But I did end up getting my period. And we kept trying. And then around the 10-month period I was talking to one of my friends too, who also had not the same issues, but she told me, she did give me some advice. If you're going to go to the doctor, tell them you've been trying for a year. Because if you say anything less than a year, they'll say wait a year and kind of come back. And I, at that point, was already 34. So I didn't want to wait another 2-3 months for just to have the same issues, So I was like, I don't want to delay it. So I went and saw my doctor. And I mentioned previously how I discovered during the entire process that I did have endometriosis. They wanted me to do a surgery to remove the cysts that were in my ovaries, and also so part of endometriosis is when the tissue that's supposed to be lining inside your uterus it's going outside of it. Okay, so they removed all that excess tissue, all of that stuff. And the surgery was supposed to happen initially in May. So October 2019 is when we went and first saw my family doctor. She referred me to a fertility specialist. And then I was supposed to have the surgery in May, like, after all the ultrasounds and blood work and, you do a bunch of stuff. I was supposed to have the surgery, but then because COVID hit, we had to delay, and I ended up having the surgery in September 2020. And they did tell me at the time, I did have eggs, like I did have an okay eggs reserve, but they told me, when we do when we remove the cyst, there's a chance, of course, that some eggs or follicles are also going to be, like, you're going to lose some, in the process, but removing it will help increase the chances of you getting pregnant. So we have to do it, or we should do it. It's highly recommended that we do it anyways. And I was okay with that because for me, number one, because after finding out that I did have, well, at that time they didn't know it was how serious endometriosis was. They just thought it was just, because I mean, I've always downplayed my pain, and I feel like that's like a lot of people do that. Always downplayed it. Like it's not that bad. It's not that bad. So when I'm talking to the fertility specialist, it's just like, yeah, like, sometimes it kind of gets bad, but I'm okay. Like I can manage it with like Advil or whatnot. And so they didn't realize, and they were kind of pushing me not to get the surgery, or the actual surgeon that was supposed to perform the surgery was kind of pushing me not to do it. But then I said, this is what they said. They said if I do the surgery, then, excuse me. So if I do the surgery, then that'll increase my chances of getting pregnant too. And it's a little bit crazy that there's a lot of women out there that have endometriosis, but unless you're trying to get pregnant, like no one wants to even do that surgery. It's kind of almost like, oh, it's just like an elective procedure, but the amount of pain that some people are in, it's a little ridiculous that you have to be trying to have a child for anyone to take it seriously and, actually do the surgery for you. And I mean, that's a completely different thing, but, yeah. So anyways, so I ended up having the surgery. So at the time they did my surgery, they also checked my tubes because they wanted to see if things were, they put like a dye to see if things were just flowing through smoothly. And they realized that, like, even though my tubes were not in good condition at all, at least it was flowing through. So they didn't remove any of my tubes or anything like that. They left it as it was. So one of the options, I mean, there's a couple, I'm sure there's a bunch of options, but the two options that were presented to me is I could either do something called, I think, IUI. And I think that's when they actually just inject the sperm into your uterus, or, I'm not a doctor, okay? But like, they inject it while you're like ovulating, and they try that, or before, during the ovulation time, I guess, or right before it or something like that, to see if they can, if you can conceive that way. But because my tubes were in such bad condition, I had a very high chance of, again, the word is escaping me. I think it's called ectopic pregnancy. I'm going to stick with that word, where the embryo actually implants in your tubes instead of your uterus. So that can be very dangerous, right? Especially if it's not discovered right away. It could actually, just be very dangerous for the female, for the woman. So we don't want to risk IUI. We decided to, and the chances are slim anyways with IUI. So we decided just to go straight ahead to IVF. When they referred me to an IVF specialist, I did my blood work and everything like that. And when they did my blood work, there's something that they measure. I think it's called AMH levels. And just to see, and I think that determines like how many follicles you have or how much eggs you have in the reserve. And that doesn't judge the quality of the eggs or the eggs. It just tells you how many. And when they tested my blood work, it was very low. A lot lower than what it was before I had my endometriosis surgery. So and the endometriosis surgery is called a laparoscopy, okay? Is what I had for endometriosis. Now, it was very, very, very low. And the specialist was just like, I'm not sure like how many eggs we're going to even be able to get. It was just, I don't know, it just wasn't looking good. And then we did an ultrasound, but the ultrasound looked a little bit more positive. So she said, let's go ahead, full force. They maxed me out on all the drugs. I did my first procedure in June last year, so 2021. And yeah, maxed me out on all my drugs. So it basically starts from when you get your period. On the second day is when you go in for your first appointment. And I just need, because I have to tell you like how that experience is. You go to the doctor's office, and then you do your blood work, then you go and you need to do an ultrasound. And now, like, spoiler alert, I've done multiple IVF cycles. And Akash only found out on my third, so I've done 4. Only on my third cycle did he find out or realize that when I say I'm going for an ultrasound, they're not just scanning my stomach. Okay? Only then did he realize that they actually go inside. Okay? It's inside ultrasound, not outside ultrasound. Okay? And he's just like, oh. And I was like, what did you think was happening all this time? And it's kind of funny. I guess some things I just assume that he knows, but that's not always the case. And this clearly was one of those times. So when you go in for your ultrasound, so you go into a room and you're supposed to take off everything that's like waist down. And they give you're supposed to put on this like robe, or gown or whatever, and the space in there is so small. Like the depth is like, it's like this, and you're in here. So imagine me in here, and I'm trying to take off my pants without like opening the curtain too much so that people can and people can peek in and see me, because like that's like, I hate that. And trying to change, and then there'll be like this little plastic long thing that's like stuck to the robe or the gown, and you're supposed to like rip that off and then tie that around your waist. That thing will only come right enough, and the tips will touch like this. How am I supposed to tie? It's such a small, like I'm like struggling to tie it, and pregnant women come too, and they also have to change in these rooms. How are they going to put it around their belly? How? It's absolutely ridiculous. And then you go in, and mind you, you're on day 2 of your period. Okay? So, but you're not allowed to wear underwear. Nothing. Okay? So you're holding your legs as close together as possible and tiptoeing into the ultrasound room because you don't want to be like bleeding all over the floor. Like my periods are very heavy. I don't know about everyone else's. Okay? So you're tiptoeing, and then you have to get on to the table or the bed. So you sit there and you just make sure like your gown is fully covering your butt, so because you don't want to put like a bloody ass print on the bed. And then you lay down, and then they say put your legs up. So now you're just like, oh, I'm fucked. Like I lasted all this way, and I was okay. But now, like, I can't even control what's going to happen now. They're like, scoot your bum to the bottom, right to the edge. It's so uncomfortable. It's so uncomfortable. But gratefully, that's the only time, really, that you would be on your period. That day 2 ultrasound that they do. Because the next one is usually a few days afterwards. So that day of the first ultrasound is when you will actually start taking your medication. And I started off with 2. I think most people do start off with 2, and they're all needles. And then they might add like another one afterwards, maybe a few days in, just depending on how you're progressing. Now, when they initially, before you even start this entire thing, they send you all these videos, these training videos on how to take the needles and blah, blah, blah. Now, if everything came pre-prepped, it would be very easy. But there's one that I had to take, it's called Menopur. Menopur, and it there's like mixing involved, okay, which I'm like, why don't you just do it for us? Like, what the heck? And I thought, there's no way I'm gonna remember all these steps. I'm gonna have to look at the training videos every time I have to take these shots. Like, this is ridiculous. But I actually picked it up very quickly. At the end I was just like, it was very easy. It ended up becoming very easy. If you guys have trouble, like, call me. I'll come and I'll administer the injections for you. Okay. I think about on day 10 or 11 or 12, I can't remember. In that time period, they told me that they're going to trigger me. And there's like 5 follicles, and yes, trigger means they're going to give me the shot in order for my follicles, the eggs, to be released, right? And then 2 days after the trigger date is when they actually perform the extraction, when they actually, I don't know if they call it, I think it's called like they call it like the transfer, when they actually take out those eggs. Now, the day that I went and they told me, oh, they're going to trigger you, so at that time I don't have any of my trigger medication. Okay, the nurse takes out the package for the trigger medication, and she takes out this one needle. Okay, and I promise to you, I stopped listening as soon as I saw that needle. I couldn't listen anymore. The needle was like this big. Okay, and I was like, I don't know, the thoughts that were going through my head, like my eyes just like went like, and I saw the needle. I couldn't hear anything. I know she's talking, but nothing is registering. And I already knew from before that this needle is supposed to go in your bum. Okay, not in your stomach like the other ones. This is supposed to go in your bum. And it was this big. Okay, so they told me they're going to trigger me that evening. I had plans. I was supposed to go out. I was supposed to go visit one of my cousin like had a new baby. I was supposed to go visit the baby. Akash had a wedding that day, and thankfully like Akash's wedding was nearby. So that time that they tell you a specific time, this time is when you're supposed to take that medication. So I ran home, made sure I was home for that time. He also came home, he has a team that works with him, so they were taking care of everything, and he just came home quickly to give me this needle. And we were kind of running short on time, and I couldn't find the training video. I could not find it. Okay. And so the needle part was this big, just like the pokey part. And then there's like another, like a small, like a bottle that's pretty big with a little bit of liquid that they give you to, and that's the liquid that you need to take into your syringe, and you need to put it in your bum. And I felt like, oh, we're running out of time. I'm like, oh gosh, just do it. Just stick it in me. And it was this big, okay? And then somehow we managed to find the training video, and thank God he did not put that needle in my ass, because oh my gosh. It was this big. It was this big. So you're supposed to use this huge needle into this little I don't know what the fuck is that called. Can't even think of the word. So it's bigger than the typical ones they give you. It's big, but there's only so much, like so little liquid, and they give you this big one to get that little liquid out. Does this make any sense to anybody? Just give me something that's pre-filled. Please give me something that's pre-filled. They give you this huge needle just so you can get out the little liquid that's in this little bottle. In this big bottle, sorry. It's a big bottle, little bit of liquid. Then once you get it out, then you take off the thing and you put another smaller syringe, and then you put it in your butt. It could have been a complete bloody ass, literally, disaster. And all of this could have been avoided. They gave me a small syringe with the liquid already in it. Like, I don't understand. Does this bottle, this big one, just come with that little bit of liquid? Like, is that what happens? Why? Why? So the day of the extraction, Akash obviously had to come with me too. I'm going to be put under, so someone needs to be there with me to take me home. I can't drive for 24 hours. And he had to bring his sample. This way. Yes, so he came with me, and once, you meet with the doctor, and then once all of that's done, like, he goes into the waiting room, and I go into the room where they're actually going to perform the procedure. And they tell me, okay, so in the room, there's the doctor, there's a nurse, and there's the anesthesiologist, okay, who is a male. Now, they tell me to change in the corner, or like just again remove everything waist down, and they give me the sheet So it's not the actual gown, it's just a sheet. And they gave it to me and they're like, oh, this is just to cover you, you know? And I said, okay. So I took it and I went to cover and it only goes halfway. I'm like, it doesn't cover my ass. Like it just goes half, I mean, like it only goes halfway. And then out loud, I was like, oh, this doesn't cover anything, you know? And she's like, yeah, that's just for, you know, I don't even know what she said because like, what was the purpose of this thing? So then I had to decide, do I cover my front or my back? And people seeing my bare ass is my worst nightmare. My worst nightmare come true. So I didn't know what to do, but I was just like, I guess my ass is better, would be better. And I just kind of put it over and he was still, and thankfully like he just kind of he was looking away like at like some papers because he knew what was happening and at least he was very respectful on that front. And then I just shimmied over, got onto the thing, and then I was sitting there and then with my legs up, and then they gave me my anesthesia. And yeah, and then I was out and I didn't wake up, or I didn't come to. I guess I was awake because I was awake-ish, but just didn't realize what was happening until I was already with Akash again. Just in the their small recovery room that they have, and just kind of groggy, feeling a little high. And I came home, opened the car door, and threw up because I got very nauseous. I already have I already get car sick very easily. So motion sickness, yeah, it's a nightmare. So just not being able to really concentrate on the road when I'm in the car and just kind of in and out, and obviously the fact that they put me under, all of that combined, I opened the door and I hadn't eaten because, you know, when you have anesthesia being administered on you, you're not supposed to eat because there might be a bad reaction or there's some reason for it. And yeah, opened the door, threw up whatever liquid was in my system or whatever, I just threw up, and then came home, and then that entire day I was just in and out of sleep. So they told me that day that yes, they took out 5 follicles, and they call you, so the day you have your procedure, they call you the next day. So that's considered day 1, and then they call you day 3, and then they call you day 5. So day 1, they called me and they told me that, there were 5 follicles, but one of them didn't make it. When they were trying to take it out, it got, I think, ruptured in that process, which I'm assuming it's because it probably wouldn't have been a mature egg anyways. So it's fine. So there's 4. And then day 1, they called me and they told me, so what they were doing is, 2 of them, they're leaving the follicles as they were, and they're going to mix Akash's sperm with them and see if they're going to fertilize. And then the other 2, they cleaned it and then they did it. Why they only do that, I don't know. Why is it only 2 that they did or whatnot? I'm not sure. But the 2 that they cleaned, they realized that one of them was not a mature egg. So that goes off. So I was left with 3. They fertilized all 3, and on day 3, they called me to tell me that 2 of them were fine. They were progressing well. They were, you know, you're supposed to see them doubling, right? So 2 of them were good. The 3rd one is a little slow. It's not doubling at the rate that it should be, but they're just going to hold on to it and see how it does, you know, just kind of give it a little bit more time and see. And then on day 5 is when they decide if they're going to freeze it or what's going to happen. So day 5, they called me and they told me the 2 that were doubling, they're okay, they're good. But the other one is not, so it's doubling way too slowly, or it hadn't grown at all, I think, since the last conversation. So they said that we had to discard that as well. So I'm left with 2 embryos, and we wanted to do genetic testing. I think most people do that now, especially when you do IVF. You want to make sure that when you're going to implant an embryo, you want the highest possible chance of you conceiving. So the only issue for us was that the 2 embryos that we had, they did not feel like the embryos had enough cells in the outer wall. So when they do the testing, what they do is they take 5 cells from the outer wall of the embryo and they submit that for genetic testing, and which can take a couple weeks, I think. And then they freeze the embryo in the meantime. But they didn't feel like either of our embryos had enough cells in the outer wall where they would feel comfortable taking out 5 cells without it actually damaging the embryo or just harming it. So they couldn't do it. So we couldn't do genetic testing. So they froze the embryos, and then after that, it was just for us to decide how did we want to proceed now. One more thing I want to say about the genetic testing. So what they do is they take out the 5 cells, and then when they give it for testing, what they look to see is, I'm just going to use like simple terms. So good cells and bad cells. Okay. So if they're all bad cells, then for sure, there's no way that they're going to try and implant that embryo. If there's a mix of good and bad, again, they would never recommend doing it. I don't know, unless you had no other option, maybe they would take that risk. But chances are that pregnancy being a successful one, meaning it's carried to term, and all of that stuff, like it's very low. The chances are very, very low. And then if you have all good cells in those 5 cells, then the chances of it being a successful pregnancy are very high. And they also do look for genetic, defects like Down syndrome and stuff. They do look for that as well. Now, the thing is, why it's not, let's say when there's bad cells in there, then okay, but when it's all good cells, the reason it's not like 100% or it's not even higher than what they tell you is just because it could just be the area that they took those 5 cells from, like just that spot had the good cells there. That doesn't mean there's no bad cells. So which is why it's still like a gamble, but the chance, it's a very good gamble. Like the chances are very high that everything's going to work out well. So my first follow-up appointment with the doctor, she wanted to actually go ahead and do another cycle because she didn't think we would be able to get the number of follicles that we did get. And she said that, if you do decide at this point to transplant one of the embryos, and they only do 1 embryo at a time, if you did want to take that chance and just go ahead with what you have, even though you weren't able to do the testing. Now, if you do get pregnant, you're not going to be able to do another cycle or another round of IVF until maybe it might take 2 years. So at that time, you don't know what state your eggs are going to be in, your follicles are going to be in. You have no idea. And for me, we were so concentrated on just trying to have the 1 child. We never really thought about more children after that. It just not something that we even considered. So at the time I told her, whether we have more children or not, I'm okay if those children aren't our biological children, if we do decide to have more children. We just wanted to kind of see if we could have children, but it doesn't, it's not so important to me that those children need to be our biological children. So, which is what I told her. And then they were like, okay, and they're kind of getting ready for the implanting. They sent me the emails for that and what I needed to do to prep for that. And then I talked to Akash, and then I was just like, not really about having more children, but what if we can do a cycle where we're able to get embryos that we can test? Because if we can test it and they come out, if they pass, then that would be a better chance, right? So why not do it for that purpose? And we decided, okay, let's do another cycle. And at that time that we had decided that, I spoke to the doctor, and you are entitled to 1 funded cycle. So I was put on the list for getting a funded cycle, but because of, again, my age, because when I did the first cycle, I was 35. right? Yes, I was 35. So because of my age and the number of eggs that I had, she didn't think it would be wise for me to wait for me to get a funded cycle, which is why I did the first one. It was non-funded. We had to pay for everything. Even in a funded cycle, you have to pay for all your meds, and the meds can be very expensive. So that is something to keep in mind. Okay, so so the second cycle, like I was just like, oh, I just want to see what's happening with the funded, like, am I anywhere close or what's happening? I really don't know how that process works. And then the nurse told me that she checked and I can get the funded cycle. So I was like, great, like, let's do that then. And we started the second cycle, and about 7 days in, they told me that there was only one follicle. So in a funded cycle, you could have 2 attempts. Okay, so they're like, we would suggest not to continue because it's only one. You've gotten way more before. So we'll end this one now, we'll cancel the cycle. And then since you get a second attempt anyways, if the first one is successful, if we went ahead and took out that follicle, rested all our eggs in one basket, so to speak, it would be, and if it didn't work out, like, I wouldn't get a second attempt, right? When you get to that stage of the extraction or, whatever transfer, they wouldn't give you a second attempt at that point. So I had to decide what to do, and they really said, like, it really makes no sense for you to go through with this one since it's just the one. And then so I said, okay, fine. So day 7 of all the medication, again, everything full dose, and then we had to cancel it. And then I did a third cycle, and this was, I think, in November. And the third cycle, the follicles just weren't growing. The eggs it just wasn't growing big enough where they would feel comfortable taking it out, or for them to be confident, that it would be like mature eggs. And I think I went to day 14, and near those last few days, it was like multiple shots a day, like not just in the evening, it was like in the daytime too, because this like a needle that you take that's to stop your eggs from being released, like something so that it could keep growing. So yeah, that was hard because that was 2 weeks of, again, the shots, the appointments. And at that time, I was going to the doctor's office almost every day, just because of the way that my medication was working out, and then the appointments, and they had me in all the time. And yeah, I was just like living there, and it was a very stressful 2 weeks. And now on day 14, they told me it's still not growing. We have to terminate this one as well. And then at that time, I was just like, okay, like, I think I'm done. Like, it's been 3 cycles of IVF, 3 rounds of IVF, and I don't think I can keep going with this. It's just too much. And so when I spoke to the doctor, she said, would you be able to do another one? It won't be funded, but would you? And I told her no. I had said, it's already, like, it's not about the money. It's not just about the money, but it's just the emotional toll that it takes on you, the physical toll that it takes on you. It just became a lot. And and also, again, the financial thing on top of that, I know I shouldn't feel this way, but whenever the cycle wasn't successful, I felt like I'm wasting all this money. Like, this money could be used for something else. And I just felt like, I don't know, like, I was failing, right? So yeah, so just the financial thing on top of that, everything I just said, I don't want to. She's like, what if I'm able to get you a third attempt? You're not supposed to, but I might be able to work out a way. So I was just like, okay. I'm like, if you can, then I'll try this one more time. And then they let me know, I believe in December. Yeah, in December. They let me know that I can have a third attempt at the funded cycle. And I was like, okay, great. And then I did the cycle last month. Now, out of all the cycles, this by far was an emotional roller coaster. So I started the cycle, everything was fine, and then I was just worried, like, what if, my third cycle I wasn't able to get anything. The second one, only one follicle. Like, maybe my body's just like, just stop, just stop. Like, I can't give you any more. Like, it's maybe the first time was just a fluke that we're able to get 5. Like, so those are the thoughts that are going through my head. And then the fourth cycle, so I started doing it, and then they actually had me on less meds this time, because they said, sometimes some people respond better to like a lesser dose. And if we start you off strong, it'll be difficult to go less after that, but we could start you off less, see how your body reacts to it, and then we can increase the dose if necessary. So I started doing it, and then I think day 7 or 8, I was doing it, and it's still like, I would like, they'll tell you, right, if there's anything like over 1, I think it's 1 millimeter, I think that's the unit of measure, anything over 1 millimeter, you can look it up every day on, like, in the portal to see how many follicles there were and how many they were able to measure. So they had 4 and 2, 4 on one side, 2 on the other side, but none of them were big enough to measure. So I thought, like, okay, this is also going to be another disappointment. And but anyway, they didn't say anything, so I just kept taking my meds. And then I went in for an appointment one day, and they said there's 2 follicles that they measured in good size. They were like 2 and 1.9. And when I did the first cycle, like, out of the 5, the biggest ones were 1.9 and 2 as well, which I'm assuming were probably the ones that survived, all the steps. And so I was just like, okay, so I felt really good. I'm like, okay, there's 2, like, that's good. At least I had 2. I was just very happy about that. And they said they're gonna trigger me that day. So if they trigger me in 2 days, they're gonna be taking it out. So I said, okay, fine. I was ready for it. So later that day, they called me, and usually they'll call you to tell you to take, there's a shot that you take, the one that kind of stops you from ovulating. It's called orgalutron. They call you to tell you to take that, like, usually around in the afternoon, maybe around 2 o'clock. And then you take your trigger later on. So usually they'll call you and tell you when to take the orgalutron. It's something that you're supposed to always have with you, like, always have on you. So when she called, she said, the eggs, it looks like you're going to ovulate, like, you're actually going to ovulate, and you need to go home, and you need to take your trigger meds right away, and immediately, and you're going to have to come in tomorrow morning to do the extraction. So it should have been the day after, okay, but I'm going the next day because my body is trying to ovulate. And she said, oh, and also you need to get to your pharmacy. We're going to send them a prescription, and you need to take those pills, like, 1 now, 1 at this time, and then 1 in the morning, blah, blah, blah. And because if you don't, there's a chance those follicles can rupture, and then that's it, and we cannot do another cycle. So it's like, that morning when they told me there was 2, and everything's looking good, and they're a good side. When they told me the measurements, I was like, amazing. I was very happy. I was like very, very happy. And on my way, because I always go, it's always early morning, these appointments. It's like between 6 and 8 usually, or 9, 6 to 9 is when they kind of schedule you in. And they're always very early, so I always go there before I go to work. So on my way to work, I call Akash, and I'm just so happy, and I don't know, it's just very happy. And then when I got this call, I was just like, what? Like, okay. And then I told my work, like, I'll be back. And then I left. I went to the pharmacy. And then they hadn't called, and there's some confusion with the prescription. So then I just went home. Akash was home, thankfully. And I have to say, and honestly, Akash, throughout this whole process, I think for the most part, I have been in a very good headspace considering what I was going through. And mainly that's because of the people that I just have around me. I have a really good support system, and I think that's very important for everyone. Not just in these kind of situations, but in any situation. Surround yourself with good people. Okay, honestly, nothing can beat that. Nothing can top that. But anyway, I called Akash and I said, I'll call you when I'm at the pharmacy. Can you because he knows the trigger med, the big needle, all that stuff. He knows that stuff now. So I was like, can you just get that ready? It's in the fridge. Prep the thing and have it ready. So as soon as I come home, I have to take it right away. So I called him when I was at the pharmacy, and then it was just taking too long for them to figure out the prescription stuff. So I was just like, you know what? I live right next door, like right there. I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna get the shot, and then I'm gonna come back. So I came home, and then Akash already had it prepped and ready. And then I can't even so we came up, I do the shots in this room, actually, in this office room. I came upstairs, and so I was like, okay, and I pulled down my pants a little bit. So this is what he did, okay? Because this is why fucking Tamil cinema fucks everything up, okay? So he takes the needle. So this is whatever liquid is in here, it's like liquid gold, okay? He takes the needle, and he didn't have to do anything because you're not putting these shots in a vein or anything like that. Obviously, then you would get a professional to do it. These are just going in fat, okay? And so you don't need to worry about air bubbles or anything like that. It's not a concern, okay? Just give the damn needle. And and then he holds it like this, the needle, okay? And then he pushes this, and I guess to see, they say something, you could do it just to see 1 drop, 2 drops come, so then okay, it's there, and then you can give it, fine. And I never asked him to do this, okay? So he pushes so hard that the liquid squirts out like this. It's a fountain. It got air. It got lift. Okay? I don't know why. I don't know why he did it. But I was so, is angry the word? I don't even know. I was just because mind you, I'm already stressed. Okay? And this guy does this where all this thing is just... I just couldn't, and I'm like, and then he gave me the shot, and then I was like thank you, and thanks for having it all ready and everything, but I can't look at you right now. It was so bad. It was I don't even, and putting these needles itself, okay, this is the only one I needed help with because it goes in my bum, but the other ones, one of my friends asked me, oh, do you do it yourself, or does Akash help you? And I'm like, no, it's just to my stomach, so it's okay. You just, grab some fat, and then you just stick it in there. And then I was like, oh wait, hold on. Imagine if I was fit. Imagine a 6-pack. That would be painful, right? So thank God I'm the slob that doesn't really care. Or not that I don't care, I do care, but I just don't do anything about it. Thank God. But anyway, so the shot's done, I come back to the pharmacy, pick up my medication, take the first one, and it says, when he gave it to me, he told me, when you take it with a lot of food, because it can cause a stomach, you could feel nauseous and stuff like that. So then I went next door to this restaurant that we always go to, and I bought more than I needed, just because I was hungry too. I hadn't had lunch yet. And then, took the pills, and I was just kind of on pins and needles the entire time. I just didn't know what was going to happen. The last time wasn't this nerve-wracking because everything was going according to schedule. But this was like, oh, everything didn't look good. Then, oh, it looks good. We have 2 follicles. Like, we're going to trigger you. And it's like, oh no, we have to trigger you right now. You need to come tomorrow because it looks like it might rupture because your body's trying to ovulate. And then I take the meds, and then I'm just like, I'm just not sure what's going to happen tomorrow. Are they going to be able to get both follicles out? I just don't know, right? So I show up the next morning. We go through the same process, and then this time it was a different anesthesiologist, and he waited outside until I was actually sitting on the chair, which was, thank you. And so I was sitting there, and then they gave me the thing, and then I started coughing, and they say which is normal, and then I ended up and then again knocked out. But this time I actually remember the moments when I actually got up, and then I'm putting on my pants again and doing all that stuff, sitting into the wheelchair, and they wheeled me to the recovery room. I remember all of that. Like I was actually like conscious. Yeah, conscious. So I remember all of that, and they came and told me they got both, and it was actually really bad because the doctor who performed the procedure wasn't my regular doctor, because again this was like a rush thing, so it was a different doctor, and she was like Asian, and she looked young Asian, hair was tied like this, and the one of the attendees in the recovery room, I don't think she's a nurse, but she's also Asian, young, and had her hair tied like that. So I was talking to her like she's a doctor, and she's like, oh, I'm not the doctor. And I was like, I seem so racist right now. And I was high too, so it's just like, I don't know. But they were able to get both follicles out, and which was okay, great. So again, this is the emotional roller coaster. Okay, they were able to get it. It was fine. It didn't rupture. Then day 1, which is the next day, that's when they call you and they tell you about the fertilization and how it's looking. And they called me and they said the eggs don't look like they fertilized. I was like, okay. Again, Akash is not we've never had any issues with Akash, okay? And even this, for whatever reason, the sperm didn't fertilize the eggs. And they said, we'll hold on to it one more day to see if there's any change. But very high chance that it's not going to fertilize, or nothing's going to happen, and we're going to have to discard the eggs. And they called me back the next day, and they told me, yeah, there's no change. So I think out of all the cycles, this one for sure was definitely the hardest, only because it was like when there's one obstacle and you think you've gotten through that obstacle, and so everything else should be fine, right? Like this was the thing that's going to give you trouble, but now that it's solved, now you're fine. And then something else happens, and it's just like, okay, if we get through this, then it should be fine. And then it just, we got through it, but then still at the end of the day, nothing came of it. So yeah, I don't know. It's just hard. It's hard. But I mean, I still couldn't have asked for a better partner through all of this. Akash has been a blessing. And there was this quote that I recently heard, which says, if you're with the right person, even the hard times are easy, or something like that. And again, just the importance of having the right partner. I mean, that can't be stressed enough. And obviously this whole thing kind of made me think about, I don't know if you guys have watched Ejaman with Rajinikanth. So in that movie, Meena can't have kids because she was given this some sort of potion or something to drink, which like destroys her ability to have children or something like that by the enemy of Rajnikant. Okay, so she drinks this and then she can't have kids, and then I mean there's so much that happens in that movie, but she ends up committing suicide because she cannot give him an heir. And it's so dumb. Like it's so dumb. Like she ends up committing suicide because he loves her so much, but she commits suicide so that he will remarry and have a bazillion children. Like I don't know, like. And I remember every time I watched that movie, I'm like, I'm sure like Reggie doesn't care. Like I'm sure if you just told him, he would understand. Like he's not gonna blame you for it. It's not your fault. And he's not gonna prefer that you die. Like this, it's really very, very, very silly. Very silly. Again, another reason why Tamil cinema fucks things up. And the needle thing, like, because in movies, I don't know if you guys have seen it, the doctor always comes with a needle and he does this and it squirts, and then he goes and he puts it into the patient. Okay, and Akash thought he was fucking like Basuraj MBBS or whatever. I don't know. So I just want to end off this episode with some things that I learned, some things that I didn't know prior to this. And I only came to find out during this entire process. And like a lot of the stuff that I get is from TV, like because I watch a lot of TV shows and Friends. Definitely, they do deal with you know, like with Chandler and Monica and with Phoebe when she was, you know, pregnant with the triplets and stuff. Like I pick up little things here, but that show was in a completely different time. So things that you may think are the truth because you've seen it on these shows, you come to realize that it's actually not true anymore because there's so much more information that they know now. And one of the things was the whole ovulation date. So some people think that you could only get pregnant on your ovulation date. That is not true. Okay, like if you have sex on your ovulation date, that is not true. Because sperm can live up to 5 days inside your uterus or wherever inside you. Up to 5 days. So you can't, I mean, for anyone who's using that as a birth control thing, like, oh, this is my ovulation date, I'm just going to have unprotected sex like before that, like a few days before, so that like it'll be fine, like I'm not going to get pregnant. That's not true. Okay. And if you're trying to actually have a child, if you're trying to get pregnant, then yeah, start having sex. Just that it's pretty much the 5 days prior to your ovulation date, and then the egg lasts for 1 day. Like has like a 24-hour window or something like that. So it's almost like a 6 to 7 day period where, you know, you should try and have sex consistently or regularly, like every other day at least, to increase your chances of getting pregnant. For women, they say there is a big drop off between like until you hit 35, until like, yeah, when you're 35, like you're considered in one age range. And then after that, so when you're 36 and older, the numbers do go down like quite significantly. So if you're younger, if maybe you don't have a partner or you just don't want to have children right now, and if having your own biological children is important to you, then you definitely should look into freezing your eggs. Yeah, like it's going to probably cost some money, but I mean, if it's important to you, I feel like it's worth it because again, the quality of your eggs, everything changes after 35. It changes a lot. So, and when I did my first IVF cycle, I was 35. That was in June. And it was just a few months later that I did the second one, but there was a huge change and I never got back to that. So I don't know if it's just the age. And I mean, like, obviously age is just like an arbitrary, it's not like, oh, from this date forward, then everything, whatever, but they also look at it very differently. And if you're going to do funded or not and all of that, even funding, I think there's like an age limit, but I think it's 40 something, but I'm not sure. But yeah, if it's important to you to have your own biological children, then do look into like freezing your eggs or something like that. Keep that quality of egg there, because again, you don't know what's going to happen. Most importantly, don't lose sight of who you are. To all the women out there who are having trouble with fertility, or who just have decided not to have children too, because I mean, that's okay. That's really okay. Don't lose sight of who you are. Continue to do the things that make you happy, bring you joy. Don't let this aspect of your life affect everything else. You know, just keep moving forward. And if you're going through fertility or IVF, let me just say that. If you're going through that process right now, make sure you watch the training videos properly. Okay? Don't assume because they gave you this big needle that needle needs to go up, like, you know, needs to go in your ass. Don't assume. Because, yeah, I still think about that. Like, what could have happened if Akash listened to me and they just did it because I was just like, we don't have time. Like, you need to just, oh my God. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. This was kind of a long one, but I just wanted to get everything out there. If you have any questions, please please don't hesitate to reach out. I will try to either answer the questions if it's like the similar, same kind of questions, maybe in a different episode, or I'll just respond to you. It doesn't matter. You can DM me, or you can email me thatbrownbish at See, I don't even know my email address. I haven't said it in so long. thatbrownbish@gmail.com. And then again, please do like, share, subscribe. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Insta. Just find me, message me. And yeah, I'm really open to sharing my experiences and talking to anyone who needs someone to listen to. Grateful, thankful, blessed. Peace.